whose life was so dramatic with seductions, financial scams, and even multiple assassination attempts that mirrored the plots of his own opera. Well, today I want to tell you about an Italian composer by the name of Alessandro Stradella. Alessandro was born near Rome into a family of minor nobility in 1639. As a young man already, he showed quite a bit of aptitude towards music, and Rome was filled with music. At that point in the 1600s, Rome was not just all about religion, it was also cultural. And being a musician there could bring you a lot of power and a lot of influence. By the 1660s, he was working as a composer there in Rome. He was composing a lot. He was writing cantatas, sacred works. He was writing all kinds of things, but stood out because his work was so dramatic. People loved it. It was very theatrical. It had these expressive melodies that were more than what they were used to. Also, there was this great distinctive storytelling that he did through his music. So he gains this reputation in Rome for this phenomenal music that he does, for being brilliant, for being charming, but also for being dangerous and unreliable. In Baroque Italy, patronage was everything, and you did not break that trust. Because not only were you then you could potentially lose your income, but you could also potentially lose your life. But he didn't seem to care. He often misused his finances. He would take it and not use it for what it was meant for. And he was also involved in a bunch of financial scams. So this financial misconduct forced him to be on the run, and he would go from one city and he would do it there, and then he'd have to run to the next city and he would do it again. It's not like he learned his lesson. He just got really good at running. However, this financial scamming and running, it was not his biggest issue. He had a problem with having affairs with married women, and not just any married women. He would get into these relationships with married women of high stature from very wealthy families. So at one point, he's having an affair with this woman who is under protection of a very wealthy family. And this led to one of the first serious murder plots against him, because not only was he offending this one family, he was a danger now to all wealthy families. He was insulting them. So what did he do? What he always did. He fled. And this became a cycle for him. He is somewhere and he has to flee for many reasons. Eventually, he ends up in Venice, which was a great place for a composer, but it was especially one like him with such dramatic flair in his music. But the drama, of course, is not only in his music. And Venice, it's a place where people could just disappear. So he had to be careful. And he was not. He became involved in another major romantic scandal, again with a married woman from a family that is very high up in class and money. This situation escalated into violence, you guys. And this time the plot was not just a threat. It actually ended up with an assassination attempt on his life. According to many accounts, he was stabbed, really stabbed, nearly to death, but he survived. And this only made the story about him even bigger, of course. And his music was doing great. He never stopped composing. This survival only increased his legend, of course. He became a man who kept escaping death as if fate could not catch him. As easy as I'm telling the story that we just get swept up in all the scandal and craziness of his life, which was there. But he also mattered musically, because musically he was quite a genius. And as far as music history goes, he's actually really important. Stradella helped shape the Baroque style that would eventually become the norm, under Corelli and things later on. And he's the one, or one of the ones, that developed this new musical form that we call the concerto grosso. A concerto grosso is the idea of contrast. So here we have two different groups, but they're actually one. So you have a small group, an inner group of soloists, of musicians, and they're called the concertino. And then you have the larger group, and they are around, and they are called ripieno, and they're going to play back and forth, back and forth. Compositions really explored this dramatic contrast. He was all about it, because you can have this big sound and then this almost nothing sound, right? And it can go gradually. You can gradually add more musicians, or you can do it all at once and then take all of it away. It is very effective, especially for storytelling. His instrumental music and his sense of structure helped push this narrative forward. Of course, later composers became very well known for perfecting it, but someone has to start it, guys. So while his personal life was very unstable, to say the least, his professional life, his music, his compositions helped lay the groundwork for many Baroque composers after him. At the end of the 1670s, he was more than just a composer. He was actually, and especially in Italy, he became a legend. They didn't just talk about his music, and they did, but they also, of course, talked about his life. He made many enemies. He inspired devotion, but he also, survived attacks. He got in danger and seemed to walk out of danger with his cloak behind him, all while he just continued on with his composition and his career. In his later life, in the early 80s, he settled in Genoa, and it seemed that maybe he was starting to settle down. He continued to compose, but he was not settling down, guys. His romantic entanglements with these wealthy women continued on, and these wealthy families were still not okay. And the more he did it, the more upset they got. And in 1682, there was another assassination attempt, and this time it succeeded, and that's how he died. He was only in his early 40s, so we could have had more had he behaved, but I don't know if it would have been as exciting. Of course, we still have his music. He's been admired for his expressive vocal lines, again, drama, and also for his value in helping shape the Baroque style that we have. He's remembered for his influence in the development of the concerto grosso. But he's one of those people that if you would do a biography about him, his personal life and his music life, you really can't separate the two because his music was telling so much of who he was. Composer of real talent and influence, helping shape the sound that we would later on have, but also famous for his reckless choices, both with money and definitely with women. But fascinating. Go and listen to some Alessandro Stradella.